I just recently watched a documentary from, I think it was 2015, called Back in Time. And it's a look at how the movie Back to the Future changed the movie industry and how so many people from generation to generation has become fans of this movie since its release back in 1985. And at the end of this documentary, all those that have been interviewed, the cast and the directors, the writers, even some super fans of the show, were asked if they could travel back in time to any place or even into the future, where would they go? And some said that they would like to go back and witness different eras like the 20s. Some wanted to relive some great moments in history. Some even wanted to go ahead and see what it would be like 100 years from now. And I want you guys just real quick, take a moment and think about that. It's a fun question to ask yourself. What would you want to see? What would you want to experience? What are some of those things that you would like to see, or maybe even from the past or from the future? And if you guys have an idea, and those that are watching online, you guys can maybe do it in your own room there. But like, maybe someone give me a couple examples. What was something that you would like to do if you had a time machine? What would you do with it? Anyone?
See myself playing with my brother in the park.
That's a great answer. Kind of reliving a moment back in the day. Anybody else? What's that?
Time of Christ.
Time of Christ. I mean, that's like one of those answers that you just would love to see what it was like when Jesus walked the earth. Anyone else? How about one more?
Riding a train through Yellowstone when they first opened.
Riding a train through Yellowstone when it first opened. All these are great moments. And even the ones that were on this documentary, no one really said that they would want to go back and change something that happened in their past. And maybe that's because we took Dr. Emmett Brown's warning of not to mess with the space-time continuum too much from Back to the Future. We didn't want to mess things up, right? But for me, I would love to do some of those similar things, to experience different eras or maybe some life events or different things that I'd like to see from firsthand, or maybe things that I only read about. But if I were to really be honest with myself, there's one thing that I would go back and I would change. I would do differently. You see, in 1999, my dad, he passed away on Good Friday at the age of 53. He had battled cancer for many years, and it eventually wore him down and took his life. And while my mom, my brother, my sister, other friends, other family gathered around him to say goodbye, I was 700 miles away in Ohio getting ready for Easter services at the church I worked at. I remember getting that call from a friend of the family, and how painful it was, not that just my dad had passed away, but that I wasn't there, that I couldn't be with him and my family for this life-changing event. There were many factors that kept me there. When I knew he was getting worse, I was in a bad marriage at that time that was filled with manipulation and control. I never really felt a release to come home and visit. I was working at a church that wouldn't let me out of my Easter responsibilities. Even after he had died on that Good Friday, I couldn't get a ticket home to see my family until after church was over on Sunday. I was also not in a place personally. I didn't have the confidence in my own self to stand up and decide what I needed to do, what was best for me and my family. But regardless of the why behind all of this, the fact was I was not there. And I blamed myself. I told myself I wasn't a good son. I believed that I had failed my dad, that I had left my family down, and I had lived with that pain ever since. You know, that pain we have when we might have missed an opportunity, or we wish we could have done something different. We wish we could take something back that we said, that knot that you have in your gut, and you play the game in your mind saying, if I only could have done this different, if I had a do-over. That's called regret. And we all have things that we regret, right? Take a look at this picture in just a second when it comes up. Hopefully, there it is. No regrets, right? I think we all have things that we would like to take back. Anyone else have, not that feeling, but anybody else have a feeling? I bet if we went around the room, we could probably each mention just something that we regretted, maybe a missed opportunity, a hurtful word that we said that we can't take back, something that we didn't do that changed things and cannot be done. It's a part of human nature. And if regret is a part of being human, then what are we supposed to do with those feelings? Are we supposed to just live with them Are we supposed to keep feeling bad about these things that we regret? And even though they are over and done with, why do they still hold weight for us today? No matter how much we wish we had Dr. Brown's time machine to go back in time and change things from our past, the fact is that we cannot change anything that's happened. None of us can. Not one person can undo something that has been done, but we want to. I mean, the whole Avengers Endgame movie is based on that, right? That they want to go back and undo something that happened. But no matter how hard we try, no one can undo the proverbial Thanos finger snap in the world. No matter how much we want to. Some of you get that, and some of you don't. That's okay. So we are stuck with this regret, right? How much time do we spend on regret? How often do we dwell on things that cannot be undone? How many times have I sat there and thought, what would have been like if I had done things differently when my dad, when he was getting worse and worse? What if I had stood up for myself and I said, no, I'm going home? I keep replaying this scenario in my head over and over. But regret, see, it can be an anchor that holds us down. It can be immobilizing, keeping us trapped in a prison of shame and remorse. Holding on to regret can have effects on your life now and in the years to come. Because for some of you, what you regret, you may not be able to trust anyone anymore. Maybe there's others who took a chance on something and it didn't work out, and now you're unwilling to take risks. Maybe you made a decision and it turned out in your mind to be the wrong decision, and now that regret has paralyzed you to the point that you can't just, make the wrong decision or the right decision, but you don't want to make any decisions because the last time you did, you regretted it. So it's easier just to avoid decision making altogether, and you live in this anchor that's holding you down. Another thing that regret does is hold us prisoner to our thoughts, because we play the if-only game that I talked about earlier. If I'd only taken that other job, if only I hadn't said that to that person, if I had reacted differently to my kids during this situation, if I only had made a priority to have been there when my dad passed away. We play those moments out like we have the power to change them, but we don't. We must come to face the truth about things we regret. And that truth is that we cannot change the facts about the past. But the even greater truth is that God can change the meaning of your past. You see, God was there in the moments that you regret. He was walking alongside you, and whether it was what he wanted you to do or not, we have to trust his promise in Romans 8 that says he will work what? All things. All things. Good decisions, bad decisions, things that happen to us, or things that we caused to happen, things that we did or didn't do, all of it he works for our good. It doesn't mean that those things that we regret were good, but he can take our worst mistakes and our deepest regrets and work them for our good and for the good of others around us. Have you ever stopped to think about how the things that you regret have changed you? How they have made you a better person, allowed you to use that experience to help someone else who is either in that same place of regret or in the middle of the moment that you can't help them through it. Since my dad died, I've had so many opportunities to talk with other guys who've lost their dads. And I've even had opportunities to talk to people who have regretted things in their life that maybe talking to me about my experience has helped them. And the reality of it is as I'm talking to people, and even as I was preparing this talk for today, I realized I hadn't fully processed everything. So it's a continuing process. For some of you, you can think of examples of how God has used you. But others, maybe that experience is too recent or too heavy. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a thing called surrender. Because we need to release ourselves from that prison that regret holds us into. To stop blaming ourselves and thinking that we have written our future with the mistakes that we've made in our past. After all, the Bible is filled with people who have made terrible mistakes. Yet God, despite that, has used them in powerful ways. David was an adulterer and a murderer. Pretty big mistakes, right? But God called him a man after his own heart, and the Messiah was to be born out of his bloodline. Jonah ran from God, and he even had the wrong idea and the wrong attitude about the people that God wanted to save. But through him, the grace of God, Nineveh was spared. The biggest regret, I think, would be somebody like Paul, who his whole life before he became Paul persecuted the church, hurt people, caused so much pain. But does Paul say, I regret everything that I've done? Does he say, oh, I live in so much remorse, I wish I could have taken it away? No, in fact, in Philippians 3, he says, here's the key: forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Forgetting the past sounds a little easier said than done. We're really supposed to just forget the past. But that's not what Paul's saying. He wants us to try to use the past, the mistakes that we've made, to help us grow and to lead better lives now and in the years to come. So in closing, real quick, there's 3 things that we need to do. First, we need to just accept the fact that we can't change the past and take it to Jesus, to surrender those hurts, to surrender those things that we regret. Then allow the Holy Spirit to come in and heal those places, the loss, the pain, the emptiness, and ask him to fill those things with his joy and peace. And finally, we need to ask God to give us opportunities to see how he is working these things for good. Ask him how these things that we regret can be redeemed. With God's help, regret goes from a pain to healing, and eventually will turn into a strength. So don't let regret of things in the past decide your future. Remember the words of Dr. Emmett Brown from Back to the Future. Your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one, not filled with regret. Thank you so much.